I've been avoiding this list, this Billboard list, for a couple, almost like a month. Like they've been working on this list, maybe 2 months. I already know who a couple of them are, but for the most part, this is a raw reaction to this list. I have a good idea of who's going to be on here, but that's pretty much it. The 25 best pop stars of the 21st century. These are the honorable mentions, and 50 Cent is in there. Okay, I guess we're including rappers, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how we are considering 50 Cent a pop star, but Alicia Keys, Billie. Okay. I'm a little surprised Billie didn't make the top 25, but I think, I'm hoping there's less recency bias because I think that Billie obviously reached her peak in the 2020s. You got to give her some time to make a list like this, I think. Cardi B, okay, another rapper. Carrie Underwood, a country pop artist. Okay, Chris Brown. Okay, Christina Aguilera. I get it. Doja. I think as far as like hit monsters go, I think Doja is one of the biggest hit monsters of this generation for sure. So I wouldn't be surprised if she made this later in her career. Obviously, she's another artist who's pretty early on in her career. So we'll see. Dua Lipa. Yeah, I think honorable mentions is fine. Doesn't belong on the actual list though. Future. The rappers are throwing me off. J-Lo, no. Okay, like realistically, music-wise, like maybe as like a superstar in terms of like film and TV and music, but not just as a pop star. Kelly Clarkson, okay, yeah. Honorable mentions makes sense. Kendrick, why are we including hip hop artists? Why? Like I get it if it's like an R&B pop artist, but like why are we doing like hip hop should be a different list? Because pop is a genre. Kesha, okay. Lana. I'm actually surprised Lana didn't make it. I'm a little surprised Lana did not make the list. Not because it's like, Lana isn't the most consistent artist ever, but as far as like sheer iconicness, influential, I think that Lana's really up there. I mean, a lot of the alt pop artists out there right now are like directly mimicking Lana Del Rey's style. So interesting that she didn't make it. Lorde's another artist you could argue could be in there, but again, she's like released such little music throughout her career, and Melodrama's peak. I think Melodrama could just on its own make an argument for Lorde being on here, but makes sense she's in honorable mentions. I think Maroon 5, okay. Megan Thee Stallion, yeah. Missy, okay. Like this is weird because like what are we doing? The qualifications are so strange. Nelly, Olivia Rodrigo. I think Olivia Rodrigo probably will be in here. I think Olivia Rodrigo is almost guaranteed to be a top 25 pop artist ever, and probably by her next album or two. I mean, like, listen, if this is like rappers, like I think Missy Elliott's a top 25 rapper or like rap star of all time for sure, easily. But yeah, I'm just a little confused by the qualifications, but I'm gonna stop bringing that up. I'm just gonna pretend like, given the whatever this list is, that rappers are also pop artists. By that case, Kendrick Lamar has top 5 songs, like the top 5 songs on the Billboard charts right now. Like no artists are doing that. Like very few artists are doing that. So, Kendrick not being in here is a little silly, I think. Where were we? Pink, okay, yeah, Pink does need to get down from there though. She has no business flying around a stadium. Not with the way her music sounds. Post Malone, okay. Post Malone's a massive hitmaker, but, I agree with him being left off this. Sean Paul. SZA, I think SZA could make an argument again. All right, let's move on to the actual list. 25, Katy Perry. You can't really argue with it too much because while Katy has fallen off and she's not the most consistent artist ever, God damn was she ruling the charts. God damn was she like massive at the time that she was super popular. Like early 2010s, Katy and Gaga just kind of ruled that era. I think it makes sense that she's on here. Yeah, that checks out. Ed Sheeran, listen. Again, I'm not 100% sure on the qualifications. Ed Sheeran does not make great music, but he's huge. He's fucking huge. And the one thing that I will always say about Ed Sheeran, no matter how much you like Ed Sheeran's music, it is so impressive that he was selling out stadium tours with nothing but a loop pedal. That's crazy. Being the only musician on stage selling out stadiums is a little ridiculous. That's pretty iconic, but, I don't think I would put that on my list, but I can understand why they would. Bad Bunny obviously needs to be in here, okay? Nobody has bridged the gap of like popular music and pop music, Latin pop and American pop music like Bad Bunny has, Bad Bunny is doing just as well, if not better, than a large portion of the American artists in pop music, so in America, which I think is unbelievably impressive. One Direction, okay, if we're including groups, I get it. Like, One Direction did kind of take the world by storm. One of the most successful UK groups ever, easily in pop music, but I mean, just in general, to be perfectly honest. Lil Wayne, absolutely. Again, if we're doing rappers on this list, Lil Wayne absolutely needs to be in here. Hit after hit after hit, and like those early Carter albums were so goddamn good. Bruno Mars, yeah. This old argument about who is this generation's Michael Jackson, I think whether you like Bruno Mars, love Bruno Mars' music as not, I've just recently became a fan of Bruno Mars. I really am not super big on his old stuff. Like the Doo-Wops and Hooligans or whatever that album is, that is not for me. But I really do like Silk Sonic. I like 24 Karat Magic. So yeah, and I think he's really found himself as an artist. So I think Bruno Mars is as close as we have to a modern Michael Jackson, just in terms of like checking all of those boxes for sure. BTS, yeah. If we're going to include a K-pop group in here, I mean, just by sheer numbers, I guess, throw BTS in there. If BTS is here, I don't think Blackpink's going to be in here, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, BTS is undeniably like a really successful. Even though I'm not a huge fan of their music, I can see why you'd put them in. The Weeknd obviously needs to be in here. I'm a little surprised that he's this low, honestly, because speaking of influential, if we're going to use, I think this type of list does deserve to have influence as part of it. That's why I think Lana should have been on this list, because very few pop artists are as influential as Lana Del Rey is. So her being on honorable mentions is a little silly. In The Weeknd, I mean, literally everyone tried to make 80s like inspired like pop R&B. Everybody did after Hours came out. And before that, his sound on House of Balloons and Trilogy, everyone tried to do that. Zayn tried to make an entire solo career off of doing The Weeknd sound on House of Balloons. Yeah, I think The Weeknd should probably be higher, honestly. Shakira makes sense. I think the first artist to really make a huge impact, her and Selena, of Latin pop artists in America. So I think Shakira absolutely deserves to be in here. Jay-Z, yeah. Honestly, I think as far as like hit makers go and like big pop artists, Jay-Z's not really a hits guy. He's an albums guy, and he has some really big features on Rihanna songs and Beyonce songs, but like Jay-Z's not really a hit maker. He obviously has hits and he's sold a ton of records. I think 99 Problems is his best hit. And he's got some other good ones too, but it's an interesting placement on a list like this. Miley Cyrus lower. Miley makes no sense being this high. What kind of impact has she had on popular music? Any impact? How many great records has she put out in popular music? Plastic Hearts is pretty good. I don't think Miley belongs anywhere near a list like this, to be perfectly honest. I'd argue to even leave Miley Cyrus off of honorable mentions. I don't think she even deserves a nod, to be perfectly honest. And I'm just trying to look at this objectively. People say Hannah Montana should put her in here. Yeah, Hannah Montana alone might push the needle, but I don't think she needs to be in here. Justin Timberlake, it makes sense. It makes sense. I don't think I would put him this high, to be perfectly honest, but during his time, he was a really big deal. So I get it. Future Sex Love Sounds, I think, is a really good album. Nicki, I can't deny Nicki's impact. I really can't deny, like, what Nicki did in popular music. I don't think, as far as I always wish that Nicki leaned more into hip hop music and really started to become an albums artist. I'm not saying that I don't like Pink Friday. And the Pink Print has some good moments, but I'd probably put Nicki lower, but I wouldn't argue that she doesn't belong on this list somewhere. Eminem, yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, Eminem for sure. I mean, really impactful artist for sure. And, he is probably the most successful rapper of all time, like numbers wise, for as long as he's been doing it. Like, I mean, nobody's had as long of a career as Eminem has had, and made as, sold as many records as he did. So, yeah, it's impressive that he's still relevant, I guess. But he also did fall off quality-wise. Usher had his moment, but I don't think Usher belongs this high at all. And I'm not saying that, yeah, Usher's got some iconic tracks, but come on. 11? He's here off one album for real. Yeah, Usher really is here off of one album. Okay, Adele. We're in the top 10 now. Adele makes sense. Can't really argue otherwise. Adele is kind of been the premier ballad pop artist in the world for over a decade now. So Adele just kind of needs to be in here. There's no way around it. And absolutely, a powerhouse vocalist, really consistent artist, never released a bad record. So I think she belongs in here. This is a controversial one, Ariana Grande, but I really don't think it should be. As far as vocals go, I think she's one of the best vocalists in popular music at the very top. She's the best vocalist in the world right now in popular music in the mainstream, I think. As far as consistency in doing it as long as she has been, I can't think of an artist that consistently puts up like top tier vocal performances in pop music like Ariana Grande does. And I think she deserves to be in here, honestly. She's released a lot of really good music, especially that run from Dangerous Woman to Sweetener to Thank You Next. I thought all of those albums were good. Particularly Sweetener. So I think Ariana deserves to be in here, quality wise and icon status as well. Justin Bieber, lower. Sorry, lower. Justin had, Justin was hot. He had his moment and he's still very relevant. But like, has Justin really even been trying for the past like 10 years? Like since Purpose, has Justin really even been trying? Yeah, I agree. Justin being above Ariana and honestly being above Adele is like ridiculous. But I just think as far as like relevancy in popular music, like obviously he's still a big deal because he's Justin Bieber. But come on. Compared to Ariana Grande, even like quality wise, of course, like Ariana and Adele absolutely, mog on Justin Bieber. Kanye, I mean, if you're going to be objective, Kanye should absolutely be on this list. If we're going to account for his fall off, I feel like number 7 is not a bad place for him, but let's just move on. Britney Spears. Yeah, as an all-encompassing pop star, it doesn't get much better than Britney. I can see people arguing her being lower, but obviously top 10. I think that Britney definitely deserves to be in top 10. I don't have a huge problem with the 6th placement because, I mean, there are very few pop stars that I think are as iconic as Britney Spears is. Obviously, her career was cut very short for really sad reasons. Gaga deserved. And also, I think that like a big part of Gaga being on here is not only was she like this massive this artist that like took the industry by storm, but she did it in her own way with her own level of theatrics and her own personality, and her music sounded different than everybody else, and obviously very influential in a lot of ways. So yeah, Gaga deserves to be in here, and I'm really looking forward to her new album that's supposed to come out next year. Drake, I mean, numbers wise, it's like hard to argue, I guess. But like all encompassing, like everything, I'm putting Drake lower. I think once Drake started just pumping his album full of as many songs as he possibly could to get streaming numbers up and just releasing everything, and then once he got too big, he's on top. He's like, oh, it doesn't matter what I release. I could release anything. They're gonna eat this up regardless. Once he got to that point in his career, I feel like that should affect his legacy. So for that reason, I'd put him a lot lower. But like also number wise, it's hard to argue against Drake. Like pretty much everything that he puts out turns to gold, for better or worse. That's the reality of it. Rihanna at 3. Yeah, I think maybe if she kept making music, I think that she'd have a good argument for being number 1. I think that's the only thing that's holding her back. But like she did even by 2016 when she stopped making music, I think she was probably the reigning number 1 like pop star of all time at that point. Just in terms of like the sheer amount of number 1 hits she was putting out, performance, quality wise, I think that Rihanna's always been doing really good stuff. So yeah, I think that this isn't a ridiculous placement, though. I think this is probably the right place for her because she stopped making music like almost 10 years ago at this point. What more can you do? I think that Rihanna definitely deserves a top 3 spot, though. Taylor Swift, okay, I imagine Beyonce at number 1. Yeah, okay, Beyonce number 1. I don't think there's a way that you could argue around this that I'm really going. I mean, like, there's things that you could say number wise, like if you want to say number wise and sales and how long an artist has been on top, both of these artists have that. I think Taylor has the edge on Beyonce in terms of like hits, and I guess like maybe cultural relevance recently, but Beyonce hasn't even been doing anything for her releases, really. Like, she didn't really do anything surrounding Cowboy Carter. And Taylor, I think, has been working a little bit harder in that respect to promote her own music. In fact, Taylor's selling pretty much anything she can. She put out an Eras Tour book the other day that I saw an advertisement for. Yeah, I mean, the army that Taylor has developed is undeniable, for sure. But I think something that I see a lot is arguments between Taylor and Beyonce, which it makes sense why, like, these are the two that people are pitting against each other, because, like, I mean, who else has been on their level for the past, like, 15, 20 years? It makes sense that it kind of has to be these two. But what I do see is a lot of fucking white people saying, oh, I haven't even heard a Beyonce song this year or like this decade. I haven't even heard a Beyonce song. I've like heard like 30 Taylor Swift songs on the radio in the meantime that Beyonce's put out 2 albums. Maybe it's your environment. Maybe you're a white girl surrounded by white girls. Were you not able to put that together? Jesus Christ. What kind of metric is it that, like, I don't know anybody who listens to Beyonce? We can look at the charts. You know, maybe it's not Taylor level recently, but like saying that Beyonce isn't popular or that her tour wasn't successful is ridiculous. And if we're talking about quality recently, I honestly, I'm taking Renaissance over Folklore or Evermore. That is the best album that either of them have ever put out, I think, is Renaissance. I'm not saying that Taylor doesn't have great records either, but I think if we're talking peaks quality-wise, Beyonce, you know, is just a better, well-rounded artist. And Beyonce is obviously putting more effort into the artistry of her music as well, in terms of, like, you know, continuing to push things forward. Beyonce's been pushing the boundary of what pop artists can do and still be popular and still at the top. Taylor Swift pushes boundaries every once in a while for her. And that's cool in its own way. But if we're talking about impact and iconic status and stuff that is going to last for generations after this one, Beyonce's music is going to do that more than Taylor's is. Well, we cannot say the Tortured Poets Department is going to be an album that lasts a very long time. Or Midnights. You know why? Because those albums sound like a lot of other things. Renaissance doesn't sound like a lot of other things that, you know, top tier pop artists are making, or literally anybody. I think Beyonce deserves number 1. And I don't have a problem with Taylor being number 2. I don't. Like, both of them have arguments for being here in the top 2. I just don't think there's a more sound argument for Taylor Swift being above Beyonce. I just don't think there is a sound argument for that. I don't. If we're encompassing everything. Taylor Swift's a great songwriter when she wants to be, though. You know, I'm not denying that at all. And another thing that I think a lot of people are going to bring up is like, oh, but Beyonce has a lot of writers. Is this a songwriters list? Or is this like a pop star list? Is this a songwriters list? I don't think so. Beyonce's a curator. Beyonce curates a team around her to make art, like really good art that sells well, and she does a great job at that. I don't think anyone really does better. But like also this flex that, like, you know, Swifties and a lot of like pop fans like to do is that there's only like, she's the only writer on like this entire album, or she's the only writer on this song. That's really impressive when the album's good. When the album sounds like it needs another writer, or it sounds like it needs editing, that's not a flex anymore. It is impressive when the album's good. So, but it's not something you should bring up if the album clearly needed more people to work on it to check her. Also, there's like nothing wrong. This idea that like having multiple writers on a song is something like, I think it makes it look worse though, because like the last Katy Perry album, every song having like 20 writers on it. Like, yeah, that makes it look worse, because like, how did that many people work on this and it still sounds that bad? But if the product is good, who cares how many writers there are on it? Like, that just means that Beyonce's surrounding herself by a team that's really good at what they do, and she hired the right people to make the right product. Yeah, who do you guys think should be on here? You know, I'm actually this list is a little confusing. I think Lana not being in the top 25 is a little silly. I don't think Rosalia should be on here yet, but yeah, I think she will be on here maybe in a couple years if she keeps it up. Charlie as well. I think that, you could argue Charlie should be on here now, I think, for how long she's been putting out really good music. So call me crazy. I think Carly should at least be in honorable mentions. But, maybe it seems like they're focusing a little bit more on sales here. And in that case, Carly and Charlie don't really have that. But I also do think that, FKA Twigs, again, I think that they're like looking at this list, they're only really doing artists that have like an insane amount of sales. That's the thing I'm the most upset about is Lana not being in the top 25, I think is silly.